Hmm. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Praman Haribo. My pranam to all of you. Good morning here from Raleigh, North Carolina. And we are again meeting each other after a very auspicious celebration yesterday of Nityananda Trayodasi. So we are doing our lecture that typically is on Thursday, today on Friday, because if we were not able to do yesterday. Well, today is our 10th session of our Vaisnava Etiquette series, Rules and Love in the Life of a Sadhaka. And in our 10th meeting, we will be sharing our third session connected to the concept of Sadhaka-deha. So how to deal properly with it, how to honor, venerate properly this gift shared by Sri Guru, and so on. So I think today may be the last uh, session connected to Sadhaka-deha, and then we may proceed to some other different viewpoints concerned with the idea of Vaishnava etiquette. So let's, as usual, first do a brief summary recap of what we were studying in our previous meeting last Monday. In our second session on Sadhaka-deha, after the introduction to the whole concept of what does it mean, what it means to be a sadhaka, what it means to have a Sadhaka-deha, what's the, if you will, the ontology of such a body, and so on. We share some practical tips, if you will, in our daily schedule. Many of them were revolving around the idea of cleanliness. We emphasize this point. We will see this all along the Vaishnava culture, all along the Vaishnava etiquette, many details related to purity, cleanliness, physically speaking, and from that on, mentally, internally, trying to make us align with as closer as we can with the sattvic standard of life. At least sattva, and from sattvas we always mention we will have better chances to grasp transcendence, a clearer view, a more balanced perspective of things. So we started analyzing a day in the life of a sadhak, if you will. So we started with the very first thing of our daily schedule, which is to wake up, and in connection to that, to sleep. So we spoke a little bit about sleeping and how certain ideas to have the best possible resting connection to the previous day, previous day's dinner, not eating too much, too heavily, not going to bed ideally too late, trying to regulate the quantity of sleep according to what's sustainable and healthy for us, not to sleep too much, not to sleep too less. Even if possible, trying to sleep in the certain particular directions, ideally eastern direction, or if not, southern direction. Some, again, adjustments that will create some subtle harmony that somehow or other will affect most of us who are still under the influence on some level or another of the gunas, as sadhakas. So those adjustments will make us, again, much more uh, open, if you will, to a sattvic perspective, and from there, hopefully, to the transcendent perspective. Also, we share some ideas how ideally we could close our previous day at night with some prayers, trying to close the whole schedule, invoking some further additional bhakti samskars, trying to hear harikatha or to read something or to pray or to think about our day, to have some introspection, praying that we may be engaged in bhakti even during sleep. We may have sadhu sangha and receive more bhakti samskars in the oniric platform, and so on. Also, some considerations regarding pure cleanliness, regarding our clothes. If we sleep, the clothes we use for sleeping are somehow not fit for some other activities like entering the altar, or ideal if you are cooking, or ideal if you are conducting yourself during the day, better you have some separate clothes. Again, all this has to do with subtle influences that we if we are attentive, we will feel them. And then when we wake up, we spoke a little bit about that as well, trying to, again, as the last part of my day, close the day with some specific impression, devotional impression, hopefully the same way the very first thing we do when our day begins, trying to glorify Hari, Guru, Vaishnavas, offering pranam immediately, if you will, like the very first impression that we will acquire in a natural way, again, not forcing ourselves. Sometimes we may, in a healthy way, force ourselves with our intelligence in the proper direction. Uh, Hopefully we do not take our cell phone as the very first act of our day or the very last one. And again, these things that we do at the beginning and the end of the day, they will create some influence regarding what will happen in between those moments. We also share some ideas about Brahma Muhurta, this specific period of the day, an hour and a half approximately before the sunrise, very auspicious for engaging in sadhana. We also contemplated the possibility of chanting japa right after one is waking up, of course, after one is going to the bathroom and cleaning at least one's mouth, face, hands, so we can enter in touch with our japa mala. And also we finally we close our last meeting speaking about some practical details regarding inhabiting the bathroom, if you will. How to clean our mouth, how to clean our hands when we are passing urine or passing stool. Passing stool, ideally, we should clean ourselves a little more comprehensively, if you will, a shower, or maybe clean our feet, our private parts, face, hands, mouth, and so on. Again, not an obsession, superficial obsession with cleanliness, but something that will maintain our body and therefore the rest of our identity, because sometimes we are quite tight with our body identification in a sattvic way. Ideally, using your left hand for cleaning the body. And also, we ended up speaking about how not to enter in the bathroom with sacred items, not only with your japa mala, but with shastra. We shouldn't enter there with, even ideally, like uh, like a chadar that may have Harinam there printed, or anything that may include devotional images, like a way of creating an awareness in our own self. It's basically for us. It's not that it, that Tulsi will become contaminated, or that Jagannath whatever in the child will become contaminated. But our own approach and conception toward it may be affected in a very subtle, even unconscious way. So those ideas are there in order to increase the awareness of the sacredness of these items, basically. So again, the idea is that these advices are not whimsical, but have some foundation, some understanding, so we can really embrace them with a proper sambandha, if you will. So some words about what we spoke during our last meeting. And today we will continue sharing some more practical tips, continuing with how our day goes on, again, in a very general way, in a general structure. Of course, each case is very individual, and there will be always even some exceptions to the rule and extraordinary days and situations. So we are sharing here a very general idea, and each one of you should use proper criterion to adjust the details. So today we will continue speaking about bathroom, specifically when having shower, and then doing achaman, and putting tilak in our body. And basically, this will be the main topics in connection to today's lecture. Again, revolving around the principle of Sadhaka-deha, how to properly honor and become aware of the nature of such gift and relate to that in a sacred way. So after waking up, after maybe chanting some japa, after going to the bathroom, again, eventually the idea is to have a bath in the morning. So that's a must, I will say, in the Vaishnava culture. I mean, nobody will force you to do that. Nobody will put a camera in your house to check if you're having a bath every single day. But it's a very basic concept of cleaning, not only in the Vaishnava culture, but in the whole Hindu society, Vedic culture, and even beyond. Like a natural way of starting our day, refreshing ourselves, cleaning ourselves in bodily terms. And again, that may affect so many other layers. And of course, if you are, I don't know, a pujari and you're entering the altar at some other moments of the day, ideally also showers are there before those moments. There are many verses in Hari Bhakti Vilas about this. I won't quote them. They will be too overwhelming, if you will, too many, but singing the glories of having a shower in the morning. And of course, sharing the consequences of not doing so, sometimes quite intensely. But the main point is, I think, and I think it's common sense, and I don't think this is very difficult. It's just a matter of creating a habit. Of course, I remember my own case before meeting the devotees. I was not having necessarily a shower every single day in the morning when I woke up. But eventually, when I learned the whys and hows of doing that, and as well as many of the details we're sharing here, I think in a few days or weeks, even all of them were very naturally incorporated. It was not just like torturous forced things that last for years and still is so impossible to carry them and so on. So we should understand this is not such a difficult uh, advice, and it didn't make sense, basically. So if we will have a shower, ideally it is recommended that before having the shower, we should brush our teeth, or I don't know, if you will cut your nails, or you will shave your head or cut your head, basically, or shave your face, or whatever you will do, all those things should be done before having a shower. If you are doing them after that, or at some moment during the day, ideally it's recommended to have uh, a shower after that, especially if you are shaving your head and so on. So regarding brushing our teeth, I remember some weeks ago, Krishangi, who is now connected from Finland, I mean, she's in France now, she shared with me that she would like to know how to brush one's teeth in a Vedic way or correctly and in a very legal way according to our tradition. And of course, I appreciated her concern of wanting to know how to do that, even that detail properly. But I will say that in connection to this particular point, brushing one's teeth, there is lots of relativity in that connection, in what we will find in the scripture. So in my personal case, at least, I wouldn't put too much weight on the idea of this is the correct way of brushing one's teeth, because we'll find a lot of this, and I will share you something with you now in Hari Bhakti Vilas of Sanatana Goswami, almost whole chapters about brushing one's teeth. But many of those things are really relative to culture, really relative to time, and only to a certain point we can really imitate or follow what's mentioned in there. What's mentioned in there, how to do that, or what will happen if you do not do that properly. So, for example, Sanatana Goswami regarding brushing teeth will speak about the teeth should be brushed with a twig, and he will speak about specific type of twigs and some specific days or positions of the moon that you shouldn't use that particular twig. And if not, something very terrible will happen. For example, there is one quote that he mentions: if one brushes his teeth with a twig on the first day, on the sixth day, on the ninth day of the waning moon, as well as on the new moon day, 100 generations of his family will be burned to ashes. So you can imagine, I mean, you can go mad after this type of readings. I mean, you by now you have already sent all your generations in the context of an adi karma without number to hell, basically, because of not even using a twig. What to speak of using the proper twig on the proper day. So there are many verses like this of brushing the teeth with this type of what we might call artavad, or exaggeration about that will happen if you do not do like this and do not do like that. And I personally will say I'm not to absolutize this type of sections. Of course, you may wonder, but why then Sanatana Goswami said such a thing, or share those verses that are quoted from other scriptures, Puranas, and so on? So again, you have to put the text in context. As we always say, a text out of context becomes a pretext. So, and this is some example of that. What's the context of Hari Bhakti Vilas? Hari Bhakti Vilas is a book written by Sanatana Goswami, who is one of the main, as my Guru Maharaj will say, the main architects of the Sampradaya. So at the point that these books were written and they were meant to establish the orthodoxy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the whole Sampradaya was not fully established yet in society. And there was a time where lots of sensibilities concerning Varna ashram were there, of how to do this, how to do that, according to the particular caste and Varna and ashram. And people were paying too much attention to that. And if you wanted to enter into society, you were expected to follow those things. So in this way, I feel that a book like Hari Bhaktivilas especially, which speaks a lot about behavior of the Vaishnavas according to time and place and circumstance in society, they were trying to give some place and standing to the Gaudiya Sampradaya in that particular time. Again, the Sampradaya was just beginning to become a Sampradaya proper. So it was necessary to give it certain standing, and in that context, make some emphasis regarding relative issues, moral issues, cleanliness issues, and with the typical language of the time and certain quotes, what will happen if you do that? What will happen if you do not do that? And some of these statements will seem really exaggerated in both directions. If you do this will happen. If you do not do that, this will happen. Many of them will sound even like karma kanda. Your family will save, or it's not even speaking about Uttam Bhakti for a moment. But again, it's a relativity, it's a packaging of relativity proper to time and place and circumstance for that moment that personally I do not think is applicable nowadays. And that's why in some occasions I've hinted at Brigupad Prabhu to compile some sort of updated version of the Hari Bhakti Vilas, maybe taking out all the sections that are out of date and replacing them with updated section of how we should do that nowadays in modern times. So my conclusion will be, do not go mad about brushing your teeth. You use the toothpaste you are using, hopefully a healthy one. The toothbrush you are using, if you want to try it with a twig, no problem. It may be maybe a little difficult, like trying to eat rice like the Japanese people is doing with the little sticks, who knows? It may be an exotic experience as you like, but do not over emphasize and over conceive these ideas. That's my point. So that's a mystery, Krishangi, the mystery about toothbrushing, at least according to Swami Padmanabha. Sorry if I was not able to, I was not able to reveal something according to your expectations. Maybe Brigupad may share some further insights in that connection. You may ask him. So after this section of entering the bathroom, brushing one's teeth, one is about to enter the shower. So regarding the shower, some considerations. I will share one that I was asked the other day by Balaram Prabhu from New Zealand. I was hesitant about sharing that, but I will share it and try to put it in context, because maybe some of you have heard about that and may be wondering what's the meaning of that. And one of the recommendations that sometimes are given is that you have a shower using a gamsha, not naked, fully naked, not seeing your private parts while having a shower. So again, that may sound weird for many of you, even in present culture, what to speak of someone who is not a Vaishnava. And personally, I wouldn't again, press and push on such an idea of like a must. But we have to go to the gist of this, to the idea of that. Prabhupada will say once something like this strongly, and we have again to understand that context. No, it's saying someone who is seeing himself or herself naked, to see oneself naked is the beginning of madness, he said once. So you have to understand the point, no? I mean, the point is we are already identified with this body. We already taken this body as sometimes our own self, as sometimes as our own in all. So the idea is, of course, not to further increase such identification and entitlement, and to deal with whatever we had to do physically on a daily basis in such a way that we are not promoting that type of identity. So this is the point when it is said, I don't know, do not contemplate your own body naked, do not look in excessive way into the mirror or stuff like this. I mean, it has to be done in a sustainable and healthy way according to each one's capacities. Of course, if you want to have a shower with the gamsha, there's no problem, maybe not so easy to manage the cleanliness of the body with that if you are fully naked. But again, you have to go to the gist. It's not about having the gamsha or not having the gamsha. But I'm mentioning that because maybe you have heard about that, maybe wondering why gamsha, having a shower, that sounds weird. But the point is that we have to go to the gist of the idea, which is try to do that in such a way that hopefully you get closer to your identity as an Atma. So regarding having a shower, something that we hear sometimes is the cold shower affair. Or some recommendation about using cold water when you have a shower. Of course, there are different things that have been said. For example, even in Ayurveda or even from Srila Prabhupada, he had mentioned about cold shower. Ayurveda speaks about that. But also it is spoken about hot shower. And again, these are relative recommendations that each one will adjust according to their own capacity. But for example, during some time, the devotees say to Prabhupada that only the cold shower, and sometimes during his time, they were having a cold shower that lasted for maybe 15 seconds or something. So we're saying to Prabhupada that they were not able to fully clean themselves because the body, it was very short, and the cold shower sometimes was not so helpful for that. So Prabhupada said, no, of course, you have to use warm water for that. The devotees were like, oh, we can do it. No, it's not a sin, basically. But of course, you can use warm water, no problem at all. But also, cold water it's interesting. It's healthy, actually, even though it may be uncomfortable. If you get accustomed to hot water, if you put cold water, that may be like, oh, I remember when I went to live to the temple, there was no warm water at all. It was only cold water, and there was not shower, but the water just came like an arrow in a one direct way. And I didn't have any advice about how to deal with that. I just entered the bathroom in my first day in the ashram. I was really happy with Samai. And I opened the shower at 4 a.m. or whatever, and I just threw the first arrow of cold water right into my chest. So I felt like I was just being pierced by Ramachandra's arrow. I felt myself Ravan or something. And for a moment I thought, oh my God, this will be like this every single day of my life in the ashram. But immediately I thought, even if that's like this, no problem. If that's the price I have to pay, of course, there was some deeper price to pay eventually, as I got to realize. But I was willing to do so. Of course, eventually warm water came, and I used it. But also, I don't say, I'm giving an example not because you have to follow it, but even though I may use warm water, I use cold water at the end always. I got accustomed to that, and I really feel it's really helpful because it helps you to become aware, awake. Not too much hot water make you dizzy, if you will. Even on a health way, all the pores of the body, when you use hot water, they open. So they absorb, if it's cold in the environment, they absorb all the cold and you may get sick. Actually, on the other side, the cold water closes the pores and activates the flowing of the blood in the body. So that creates inner heat, if you will, and protection. Also, the other day I was seeing some lecture from talk from Wim Hof, I think is his name. He's famous. They call it the Iceman. He has many Guinness records by staying under cold weather and so on. And he has some interesting philosophy. And he emphasized a lot cold water showers as much as one can, at least some minutes, as very healthy. And he speaks about, yes, cold water will feel uncomfortable, will take you out of the comfort zone for sure. But out of the comfort zone is the area when we will really learn, where we will have real experiences about things, as you know. So I appreciated his point, because out of the comfort zone is when you really have to think deeply. Too much hot water may have to do with remaining in the comfort. So all that can create some pattern. So you see what you do with that, but I think I want to share some of these ideas regarding how to deal with that in a healthy way, in a conscious way, and so on. Well, after having shower, ideally you should, of course, end your shower. You may be singing some kirtan, as we mentioned in the last class. Everyone likes to sing in the shower, so it's a great chance for shower kirtan, if you will. Hopefully in a proper way, praying. There's place for that. Not just shower. I mean, you can clean your body, of course, your Sadhaka-deha, but again, the idea is all of these moments are sacred moments. You are in the bathroom, even you're having a shower, you are taking care of your Sadhaka-deha, of your guru's gift. So again, there is a way of making all these chapters of the day sacred. Ideally, after that, you should change your interiors. I don't know if you call it interiors, the interior clothes you use after each time you are having a shower. And regarding the other clothes that you'd use on a daily basis, ideally you may use different clothes every day or at least every some few days. No, that's another way. No, it shouldn't be too dirty, because again, the gunas are influencing here and there and may affect us on some level or another. Of course, there may be some exceptions to the rule, and you may not be able to have a shower. For example, I don't know, sometimes I'm traveling to some place and I have a flight that is during the night. So I will arrive to one place at midday. So I was not able to have a shower. And it doesn't mean that, of course, I will try to have a shower as soon as I get to the place where I'm going. But before that, it's not that I cannot chant any japa or chant my Diksha mantra because I didn't have the shower. That's an exceptional case. So in those cases, we can have another type of shower. There are different types of shower. Actually, we hear about 7 types of snan. Snan means like bathing. Of course, the tip, I will mention them to you, so you can see which is the more fitting according to circumstance. One of the first type of snan, or whatever, there are 7, it's not a particular order. One is parthiva snan. And parthiva snan means using earth, cleaning your body with earth. The second one is varuna snan, which is with water, basically, as we were describing. The third one is agneya snan, which has to do with bathing with ashes from a sacrificial fire, from some yajna. Some ashes remain there, you can cover yourself like Shiva in those, permanent bathing in that. Then you have Bhayabhya Snan, which is similar to the previous one, which is the bathing with the dust raised by the hooves of a cow. That's another type of bathing, very auspicious one. Another one is called Divya Snan. It has to do with the celestial bath that comes when it's raining, when the sun is shining. It's generally not the case. When sun is shining, generally it doesn't rain, but there are some exceptional cases that happens. And according to the Vedas, it means that's a type of celestial bath. The devas are reigning at that particular moment. Then you have mantra snan, which is to have a shower chanting appropriate verses while sprinkling water on yourself, like Achaman, if you will. And the last one is manasika snan, which is meditating on Bhagavan and therefore purifying yourself in that meditation. So again, in a general way, in a general daily basis, we will have shower with water, but on exceptional cases, we can resort to some of these possibilities according to availability. And of course, even if you have the bathing with water, as I have described, you can also after that have a, if you will, subtle bath through mantra, through these last 2 methods I mentioned, mantra snan, manasika snan, that in your mind invoking, meditating Bhagavan, and invoking proper mantras that may create a sense of further purification. So there is a very famous mantra that generally is invoked in this moment. You can invoke it even just when you wake up. You can invoke that after having showered. Generally, that's invoked before entering the altar as a very universal way of purifying one's sense of identity. Sometimes that's called Bhuta Suddhi. Bhuta Suddhi means purification, Suddhi, of Bhuta. In this case, Bhuta means the elements of the body. So you find about this also in Anucheda 286 of Bhakti Sandarbha. So my mantra in this connection is one that appears in the Padyavali Rupa Goswami, which is also quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it is said that this is one of the few things that are confirmed that Mahaprabhu spoke. Apart from Sikshastaka, we have this mantra and one more approximately. So this mantra says, Naham vipro na chanarapatir na piva yusuna sudro, Naham varnina chagrihapatir na vanasto yatirba, Kintu pradyam nikila paramanandam purnamritabder, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayor Dasa Dasa Anadas. Quite well known when Mahaprabhu is saying, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaisya, I'm not a Sudra. I'm not a sannyasi, I'm not Vanaprastha, I'm not Grihastha, I'm not Brahmachari. Okay, so he's rejecting all these limiting adjuncts, these designations, upadhis. And he says, what I am fully identified with is I am the servant of the servant of the servant of Sri Krishna, the beloved of the gopis, who is shining with full brilliance, something like that. So he's establishing this idea of dasa, dasa, and udas. So this mantra has to do with purifying our sense of existence, who I am. I identify myself with the identity of being a servant of the servant of the servant of Hari, not with any other relative consideration regarding social position, ashram, varna, and so on. That's a very classical way of purifying, again, ourselves in a further subtle way. Another mantra that can be invoked in this connection is Apavitru pavitruva sarvavashnam gatopiva yashmaret pundarikakshnam svahya vyantara suchi. Which has to do that whether one is purified or not purified, if someone somehow or other remembers Sri Krishna, one will become purified externally and internally. So it's a mantra that, again, calls for remembrance of Hari and the power of that smarana, of that remembrance to purify our whole self. So again, after this shower, this purification, physical, subtle, we are ready for next step that we call achaman. That's an ideal also practice that we will engage, that won't take too much time, even if you are entering to the altar or not, but before chanting your Diksha mantra, for example, this is very befitting, which means purifying with what sometimes called Ganga water, Ganga jal. Again, all this can be adapted according to circumstance. Please do not go neurotic about every single detail, but I'm sharing here some general advice that I think is sustainable for most of us, at least. Especially all this has to do with the morning duties, if you will, our morning sadhana that will create some difference along the rest of the day. So achaman has to do with further purification, if you will. Not only when we are entering the altar, if you are entering the altar, achaman is a must for sure. And there are levels of achaman, like simple achaman, complete or full, they call sometimes. And all these have to do with further ornamentation of our Sadhaka-deha. When we say purifying it, invoking remembrance of Hari, decorating it, that has to do with increasing the beauty of the Sadhaka-deha, of the gift. So first of all, generally you have a Panchapatra. Here I have mine. You know what's a Panchapatra? This type of small vessels when you can put water. And generally after putting water, you can transform, as we call the water, into Ganga water. And there is one mantra that is recited for this. Generally one puts this mudra called Ankusha mudra on without touching with the nails on the water, and one recites the mantra Ganga Chaya Munachaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmadi Sindhu Kaveri Jalasmin Sanidin Kuru, which is invoking the presence of 7 main rivers there: Gange, Cha, Jamuna, Chaiva, Saraswati, Narmade, Sindhu, Kaveri, Jalasmin Sanidin Kuru. So all these sacred rivers are invoked there. And after that, we proceed to purify ourselves. How do you do that? Basically, the simple purification is you take 1 spoon of water and you put that in your left hand, and you just throw that to purify your left hand. And then with the left hand, you put 3 drops of water on your right hand, and you allow it to flow right this part of the hand to your mouth. But before that, you pronounce the first mantra. You say Om Keshavaya Namaha. Now we will explain a little bit more about these mantras when we speak about tilak. So Om Keshavaya Namaha, and you sip the water, ideally without touching your hand, just letting the water fall to your mouth. It's possible. It may take some attempts in the beginning. Then the second one, Om Narayanaya Namaha, and you sip the water again. And then the third one is Om Madhavaya Namaha, and you will sip the water again. And after that, you can throw 1 spoon of water in both hands, saying Om Astraya Pat. That is a general mantra for purification. And you can throw some drops of water on your head, on your feet, if you want, on the clothes you will be using. And that will be a simple achaman. After that simple achaman, if you, in the case of a male, or not a male necessarily, a lady can wear sika as well. If you have sika, that's the point. Ideally, you should tie your sika after that. After this achaman, you can tie your sika. Generally, the sika, as you can see, has some knot here. So that's another thing. Different types of knots and so on. So after this, we can put tilak. So that I will close today's exposition by speaking a while on this, which because it's a very interesting and nice point that was mentioned in the scripture. Vishwanath Thakur mentioned this practice of putting tilak, Rupa Goswami as well, decorating the sadhaka body with that, like a very favorable practice to further, again, ornament, decorate. So all this will be preliminary to the chanting of our Diksha mantras. Yet we have not reached that point. We will start next lecture speaking about that. Diksha mantra, japa, kirtan, sankirtan, and what's the etiquette in the context of all that. But before chanting Diksha mantras, sometimes called Gayatri, but strictly speaking Diksha mantras, because there are many mantras and not all of them are Gayatri, we have preliminary. All this is preliminary, the bathing, the achaman, and the tilak. What to speak if you are entering to the altar. So the idea is one should not engage in chanting Diksha mantra without bathing achaman and tilak. Again, save some exceptional situation that you cannot do so, and you can do that mentally. One name from tilak, also another name for the tilak is different names. Urdhva Pundra, this is one name. Another name is Sri Hari Mandir. That's how it's called in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And as I said, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur describes this Sri Hari Mandir, Urdhva Pundar, tilak like Swavista Bhavanukul, something that is favorable to the mood we cherished, along with wearing, for example, Kanti Mala, which is part of the decoration, main decoration of our Sadhaka-deha. This is what Sri Guru gives us in the very moment he's giving the Sadhaka-deha, when he's giving us mantra, nam, spiritual name, spiritual sense of identity, Kantimala, tilak. All these elements are part of, if you will, our new identity. So they are very nice to keep, of course, as much as we can do it in a practical sense in our daily life. So, well, basically the idea here is the body, as we mentioned, is a Sadhaka-deha, is a sacred gift from Sri Guru. The body is considered as a temple sometimes. We are to install the deity in our heart eventually. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will sing in terms of Mama Mandir. He refers to the temple of my being. Now, sometimes we go to the temple and to see the deity in the altar, but all this should help us to conceive ultimately the deity and the altar should be established in my heart. So all these other manifestations of it are there to remind me about my task. My body should be a temple. It's not that I enter the temple and I'm only there in the temple. I go out of the temple and I'm somewhere else. Ideally, my body should carry that impression along. To be a temple, we will decorate the temple. Now the temple is decorated, the body is a temple. We decorate the body accordingly, as if it's a temple. That's an important point. Sometimes we may try to decorate the body with other purpose. And that's what may create entanglement in this body, in this world, and in the identification with the body. When you are trying to decorate your body, pay attention to your body, but not as a temple, not as a sacred place. When the sacredness is not there, that's the source of some problem, maybe. So we are decorating the temple for the pleasure of the Istadeva of the temple, basically. And of course, all this is done in the context of creating further some scars in the direction of stop seeing our body as a vehicle for selfish enjoyment, basically, which is some notion that we have acquired, who knows for how long. So we are to counteract that. That's also important to understand. There is that tendency is there, so we need to invoke a higher conception of that. So all these little sacred moments are very crucial in this connection. So this tilak again is to be considered a very ornamentation of our body. It's called Hari Mandir, like a temple of Sri Hari means. So the tilak is in itself a temple, or if you will, helps us to make our body a temple. Like the marks are there to establish this is a temple. Like any other construction, maybe a house, maybe a brothel, or maybe a temple. It will depend on certain indications, if you will, certain signs, if you will, there. So tilak is there to establish this body is a temple. So in relation to our particular tilak, in our particular lineage, as you can see, this has a particular form. It is said that Brahma resides on the left side of that tilak, Shiva on the right side, Vishnu in the middle. Sometimes that connection is made in relation to the Trimurti. It is said that we should not apply in our particular lineages anything in the middle of that, except maybe married ladies can use the dot, the bindi there, no problem. And again, there are many types of tilaks according to the parivar, to the type of lineage you belong to. So you will see different forms of tilak, this part here, nuance variety, different colors, what to speak regarding different sampradayas, even the different parivars, Gaudiya parivars, there are different tilaks, Radha Ramango Swamis, Nityananda Parivar, Gadadhar Parivar, Narottam Parivar, Bhaktivinoda Parivar. What to speak other lineages, Balab Sampradaya, Radha Bhala, what to speak other Sampradayas like Sri Sampradaya, Nimbarka Sampradaya. So this also helps to identify which lineage do you belong to and how to behave properly in that connection. So in our particular lineage, our tilak is made of two main substances, we could say. One of them is what we call gopi chandan, which is the light one, like the white type of powder that generally is used. Sometimes it's connected. I've heard it comes from Dwarka, but I've done some research and it doesn't make too much sense why it's called gopi chandan, what has to do gopi with Dwarka. And also I've heard that it's connected to the place where the Leela of Krishna having a headache and the gopis taking dust from their feet to relieve Krishna from his headache. And that dust is represented in this gopi chandan. So that's a very sacred conception that I feel more inclined to. So that's one option. But also some other option is like the one I'm using here, which is to have tilak made from Radha Kunda. Or sometimes, in the case of my Guru Maharaj, he has like tilak from Shamakunda, which is similar in one sense. So we will be a little darker, as you can see. Mahaprabhu himself, when he went to Vrindavan and rediscovered Radha Kunda, it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that he made some tilak from the mud there, from that area, and he put tilak from that Radha Kunda, and that tradition started from that moment on. Or sometimes it is said, if you don't have that type of earth, you can take earth from the land, from the plant of tulasi also, where tulasi is planted, and you can make some tilak with that. Or if you don't have any of those things, it can happen. You can make Ganga water, as I mentioned today. You can take water and invoke the mantra and put the tilak, even though you cannot see that, but it's put there, the markings and the mantras with that water. Needless to say, if you're working and it's not available for you to go to your job with tilak on, no problem. But you can put Ganga water again, or you can put this tilak, then wash it before going to your job or whatever social function you have to perform. Or you can have the Ganga water, but it's a nice way again of stopping all movements and try to focus in what's a Sadhaka-deha really. So let's describe briefly each of the different mantras that we use for the tilak in the different parts of the body, and generally their meaning. All of this, they have different places and different meanings. The meanings of the names in a general way are connected to names of Vishnu in connection to Vaishnavism, but also we could make a very deeper connection of the meaning of those names according to our specific tradition as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and even a further deeper meaning according to the particular affinity the devotee may eventually have in connection to Krishna. So you can conceive, let's say, in three levels, if you will. Like in general level, names of Vishnu. Deeper level, relation to Krishna, Braja Krishna. And in a deeper level, in connection to Braja Krishna, according to one's affinity. So I will share some examples in this connection. So the first marking of Tila will go here in our forefront. So we should, again, maybe need some practice to do the tilak. I'm not doing that practically with you now, but you put the tilak and then you have to clean a little bit with your empty. Generally, we use this finger. I think you call the ring finger to put the tilak. You can, there are some other ideas, but this finger, at least for me, is practical, and you can use it. And you can clean in between then, so you can have this empty space, and then you can try to see how to make properly this part here that is connected to a tulsi leaf, and then you can clean on that part. So the mantra to be invoked there is Om Keshavaya Namaha, which means I offer Namaha, I offer Pranam. You already spoke about Pranam to Keshava. Keshavaya, Ya means to Keshava, one name of Vishnu, which could mean the one who is the controller of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. But also we can apply the name to Krishna, which has locked, his locks of hairs are like, how do you say in English? Let me think, like curly, who has curly locks of hair. Keshava have some connection to that. So one can direct, and it's nice that one can direct, one could even make of each one of these names a prayer to Bhagavan. So, oh Keshava, I offer my pranam to you. You are the controller of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Please control me. Control me. Let me surrender to your control, loving control, of course. Control me through affection, and so on. So then we go to this part of our body, how to say, like the stomach, basically. Right above the navel, basically, above the, how do you say, the belly? Yeah. So that you recite Om Narayanaya Namaha. I offer my pranam to Narayan. Narayan means the shelter of all living entities. So again, we can take that further to, in connection to Bhagavan Sri Krishna as well. He's the ultimate shelter even of Narayan. He's the Narayan of Narayan, and as our Guru Maharaj mentioned yesterday and the other day, quoting Brahma himself, praying that connection, but we can make that a prayer for shelter. Om Narayanaya Namaha. Then we continue here on this middle part of the chest, and we will say Om Madhavaya Namaha. So I offer pranam to Madhava, which is, Madhava means the husband, Dava, of Ma, of Lakshmi. That's the name of Vishnu, but also Madhava has many meanings in connection to Krishna, which means the husband of Ma could be the husband of Sri Radha, husband in terms of course, of Tattva, because in Bhava, there in Parakiya, Madhava has to do with the spring season. Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Daite. So Krishna is identified with spring season, romanticism. Madhava has to do with Madhu, with sweetness, with Madhurya, with himself being a Madhupati, himself being a bumblebee, which becomes trapped in the lotus hearts of the Brajavasis, tasting the nectar pollen of their bhakti, and so on. So we can pray to Madhava in that way. Please enchant me with your sweetness, basically. And so many other things can be there. Then we go here. The mantra is Om Govindaya Namaha. So this mantra, even though it could be applied to Vishnu in a very generic sense, Govinda means the one who pleases the Brahmins, who pleases the senses, who pleases the earth, the cows. But when you go to the cows and all that, you get more closer to Krishna in Vrindavan. Govinda is much more connected to the name of Krishna in Vrindavan, as the one who pleases the cows, the gopis, the gopas, the goats, the gopis, the ones who take care of the goats, the cows. And we should also pray, you are the Lord of the senses, please let me give pleasure to your senses, and not the opposite way around. Then we can go and pronounce the mantra Om Vishnave Namaha, and we will go here to the right side of our belly, a little bit lower than the Om Narayanaya Namaha, and Om Vishnave Namaha. Here it's not Om Vishnaya, even though Mahaprabhu say one, even if you say Om Vishnaya, Bhagavan won't take exception. Will say you meant actually Vishnave, right? He won't take the mistake. So it's correct, grammatically correct, Vishnave. I offer my pranam to Vishnu, the all-pervading Lord. Again, Krishna is all-pervading in the life of his devotees in Braj. Even in separation, he's present. They see him everywhere, and so on. So Om Vishnave Namaha. There we go to our right arm, and we will put the first marking right here approximately, and it will be Om Madhusudanaya Namaha, which means I offer pranam to Madhusudan. Again, has many meanings. Sometimes it's connected to the enemy of Madhu, which is sometimes connected to doubt, to the demon of doubt. So we pray to him, please strengthen my faith. Do not allow me to have doubts when I shouldn't have, and so on. Madhusudan also has to do a lot with sweetness, as I mentioned also in connection to Madhava. There is some connection to this idea of Krishna Vrindavan as Madhusudan, as a bumblebee. Madhusudan means bumblebee also, and so on. Then Om Trivikramaya Namaha on the top part of the right arm. Om Trivikramaya means the one who makes Trivikramaya, 3 steps, who asks for 3 steps. It's the name of Vishnu's Vamandev when he has 3 steps of land to Bali Maharaj. So we are here, we are having some of the Vishnu avatars there. And we could pray in the same way that you ask for 3 steps of land to Bali, and Bali offered his head at the end to put the last step in full Atmanivedan, offering himself with full surrender. Allow me to do so eventually, please, Bhagavan. Then we go to the right side of our belly down, the other side, the left side, sorry, and we will invoke Om Vamanaya Namaha, which is Vaman, again, the dwarf incarnation, who cheated Bali, appearing as if something different than what he was, and cheated him for his best interest. So the same way we could put our hands ourselves in the hands of our Istadev. If you need to appear in a hidden way and cheat me for my best interest, I'm willing to do so. Something like that. So then we go to our left arm, the same lower part here. We will invoke the mantra Om Sridharaya Namaha. Sridharaya Namaha, which is I offer my pranam to Sridhar, similar to Madhava, if you will. The one who sustains Dhara, Sri, who is the name of Lakshmi. But again, Sri, for us, Gaudias, is the name of Radha first. And all the other Shakti expansions like Lakshmi come after. So Sridhar means the one who sustains Radha. Or Dhara also refers to current, to flow in one direction, the one who flows towards Sri. So that's Krishna, especially if you have affinity towards Manjari Bhav, you will see Krishna in those terms. The Manjaris love Krishna, especially when he's under the control of Sri Radha, of their Swamini. So when Krishna, they see Krishna flowing to Radha, he's controlled by her love. Oh, Sridhar ki jai. So Sridharaya Namaha. Then Om Hrishikesaya Namaha here on the top part of the left arm. Hrishikesh, offer pranam to Hrishikesh, another name for Vishnu and for Krishna. Hrishikesh, Hrishikena Sibanam Bhakti, the Lord of the senses. He is the one in relation to whom all our senses should be directed in the context of seva. So that's a very gist of sadhana bhakti, to engage our senses exclusively for the sense pleasure of Bhagavan. We spoke about that in connection with what to do with this Sadhaka-deha. And of course, this applies in a deeper way. Again, if we have an affinity towards romantic relationship, has to do a lot with that as well. Then we go to the top part of our back here, and we will invoke Om Padmanavaya Namaha. For my pranam to Padmanava, which is the name of Vishnu, or you can say from which navel, Nava, a lotus is there. And from that lotus, as we know, Brahma is born. It refers to Garbhodakasai Vishnu. This is narrated in the scripture. So that's a one level of conceiving that, an example. A higher level, if you want to apply that to Krishna in a generic sense, you could say Padmanava is Krishna, he who has a lotus-like navel. The different parts of Krishna's body are compared with lotus. Lotus feet, lotus eyes, lotus hand, lotus navel. Everything is soft like a lotus, and fragrant like a lotus, and so on. And even if you want to go beyond that, you can apply the idea of Padmanava in the context again of something like Manjari Bhav. You could say Padmanava means he who has a lotus in his navel, and you can refer that to when Radha and Krishna are engaged in their amorous sports. At one point, Sri Radha may be resting her head on Krishna's navel, resting there. So her face will be like a lotus. So her lotus-like face is on the navel of Krishna, if you will. So in that connection, you can speak in terms of Padmanava in a really much more confidential way. So we can see one name, or all these names have all these levels of application. And then on the bottom side part of our back, right down, reaching the wrist, you pronounce Om Damodaraya Namaha. Offer pranam to Damodar, Krishna, the one who is being tied. And as we know, they can be connected to the Damodar Lila. This can be connected to to another Damodar Lila between Radha and Krishna. Also, there is Radha Damodar, Yashoda Damodar. And we can pray, let me be tied by the rope of affection, or let me develop such affection that eventually I will be able to tie you, to attract you in such a way. So after we have put all these tilak markings, and you can do the markings with yourself, with your hand, or you can get some of these different symbols that you can, how to say, like a stamp. You can put the tilak there, exception of your face. This one on the forehead, you have to do with your hand for sure. This won't work. So after that, you can, first of all, you should put tilak on your body sitting in an asana, ideally, not standing. Similar with achaman. This is not to be done standingly, casually walking, but trying to sit. Ideally, if you have some special asana for that, some purified cloth to sit on. So you can do the achaman, then you can put the tilak, different markings. There's a whole section again, the Hari Bhakti Vilas, about asanas. But we won't go into further detail. We just will say what Krishna says in the Gita. Your asana shouldn't be too high nor too low, so you don't have the problem of falling to the ground or something like this. And some extension of this idea, well, after you put all this tilak, the remaining tilak that may be in your hand, sometimes what devotees do is they put water in their hands, the Ganga Jal, I do like that, and I take the tilak and I just put it in my hand with the water, and I make the paste, if you will, here. So from here I start to wear the tilak. Some others may have some recipient, some vessel with the tilak made more like powder. They put water and they take from there. So that will depend. If you have that tilak in your hand, or even if you don't, you will have some tilak in your hand. The remaining you can put in the Sika area, or you can wash your hand and put that Ganga Jal there, and you can recite there Om Vasudevaya Namaha. I offer pranam to Sri Vasudeva, the Supreme Consciousness. So some ideas regarding tilak, and let me finish with some few words before we go to Q&A. Some extension of this idea of tilak and ornamenting our Sadhaka-deha is that Vaishnavas can wear also in their bodies either the footprints of Bhagavan with their markings, there are some again stamps with that, or the syllables of his names as mudras of different stamps. Now I have, for example, here one. Here is the name written. If you don't have the stamp, but you know how to write it, some devotees write the names of their Istadev, the favorite deity in Sanskrit there on their bodies and so on. So these elements, my Guru Maharaj gives these elements when he gives initiation, for example. Tapapundra Nam Yajna, a mantra. Now, Nam, he gives a spiritual name to the devotee, or Nam in the case he's giving Harinam. He gives mantra in the case he's giving Diksha, or he gives Harinam. Mantra will be the Harinam in that case. Yajna is the engagement in Yajna, of chanting, Sankirtan, worshipping the deity in the case of Diksha mantras also. And Tapa and Pundra. Pundra means tilak, and Tapa means like this stamp that in other sampradayas they do through branding the body, so that's intense. Here we put some stamp with chandan and so on, sandalwood paste with different names of Krishna and so on. Radha and Krishna, Nitai Gaur. So after this, again, after this or between this, also if you want, if you have time, it's nice also if you have time to recite some prayers, some verses in between. And this will vary. They may vary according to your affinity, to your guru's advice. There's no some fixed rule. One can recite at least, if one has certain affinity, for sure one's guru may recommend you can recite this series of verses, this section of the Bhagavat or Brihad Bhagavatamrita or whatever. Or at least you can recite, if you want, some form of Mangala Charan, some standard idea, what you offer some of the main pranam verses to Guru, Vaishnavas, Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, whatever, Gaur Gadadhar, Radha Krishna. We will speak a little bit more in detail about Mangala Charan in one lecture we will give about prachar, how to preach or how to give a class or how to participate in a class, hear a class, and so on. So again, there are different possibilities in unlimited nuance. This is not mandatory. It's just some extra consideration that if you have the time on which that may nourish your bhajan. And after this, shower, achaman, tilak, maybe some prayers or whatever, then we are ready for reciting our diksha mantras in case we have received diksha, of course. And we can continue chanting japa, or we can enter the altar, depending if that's the case, depending. But I will elaborate further on this in the next class, and in the next classes. I think that may take more than one lecture. So we will continue like following this same order of daily schedule as to accompany, if you will, each devotee in her daily devotional schedule and activities. But again, before finishing and going to questions, please allow me to again repeat. I'm sorry if I repeat myself too much, but all this type of advice, it has to be approached in a gradual way, sustainable way, healthy way. One thing is, if you are living in an ashram and you have maybe more time to focus on some of these things, some other things, maybe you have another engagements. So the most important thing is to understand the purpose of all these advices and how to adapt the details to each one's circumstance, but also understand their necessity, their role in our daily life, the influence they are having, how they will be favorable for our sadhana. And from that, we will try to have all the things at least present in our mind, even those days when we are not able to fully embrace them. But at least we know they exist, and we know their purpose, trying to help us to take care again, to honor properly, to serve in the best possible way this divine, valuable treasure that Sri Guru has given to us, our Sadhaka-deha. So some words I wanted to share today on these last 3 sessions regarding the Sadhaka-deha and how to properly deal with that, treat that properly, honor that in the best possible way. So I will put my discourse to rest here today. And of course, we have some additional minutes in case any of you may have some questions, something you may like to share. So let me allow for any one of you unmuting yourself in case you would like to share anything. There's the option already activated. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Maharaj.
Yes, Brigu.
Dandavat Pranam, Maharaj. Thank you very much for this class. I just have one small comment, if you allow.
All the ones.
I liked very much how you spoke about tilak. I liked very much the explanation and how you were showing everything, because this is something I feel is personally, I feel this is a very good and powerful meditation exactly on how the body has become a sadhaka body. And it sounds very complicated when you hear about putting all the different tilaks. But even if you put them on nicely, it just takes a few minutes. When I was in ISKCON, I remember we used to do this tilak nicely, but the others we were just doing like this. So that it looked more or less like a bird had dropped its things on you. But making the tilaks nicely doesn't take much longer. It takes just maybe 2 minutes. And I have one tip that I learned in India, because Bhaktisiddhanta told us that you're not allowed to use the nails, but it's difficult to clean the middle part of the tilak, especially when on the body, if you don't use the nail. So in India, I've seen that devotees, they use something like this.
Like a cloth?
No, you can use cloth, or then you can make a small piece of wood.
Put your finger up, because the name of Saragrahi Dasi appears there. There you have it. Okay.
So this is just a small piece of wood, just with an ordinary knife. You can carve it out so it becomes like a thin piece like this, and then you can use that then for scraping the middle part, like that. And it will work just like as a nail, but it will not be unclean like the nail. So of course you can use a cloth also, but that's more complicated, I find, because then you need to wash the cloth and everything. So make a small thing like this, it helps very much. So that's just a small tip. And I can also say to Krishangi, if she's listening, that don't worry about the twig. I can teach you all the details about that.
Okay, there you have, Krishangi. You're fully blessed. Thank you, Prabhupada, and I appreciate your contribution. And yes, I agree totally that even sometimes we may hear about these things and they may sound more complicated than what they really are. Maybe in the first attempts we are trying, that may take some more time, but eventually, very quickly, actually, you can put, as you say, the tilak nicely, let's say, in 5 minutes, if it takes too much. No, so it's not that you will be like an hour entangled, stuck there, not knowing what to do, and your body's a whole mess. It's something nice, a nice meditation. So, and I appreciate your contribution of the way of cleaning that part of the tilak as well. So what else? Any other question?
Hari Bol Maharaj.
Yes, who is speaking there?
Hari Ganga Shakti.
Yes.
Dandavat pranams.
Jai.
My question is pranams. My question is about the Kuntimala. This is normally something that devotees do not take off at all, but you said that we actually should take off all the before going to the bathroom. Is it an exception with the Kuntimala, or is it something that we should ideally take off every time?
Well, first of all, some spelling detail. It's pronounced Kanti, Kantimala. No, it's not Kunti. Kunti is the mother of the Pandavas. So sometimes I've heard many times about saying Kunti, but it's actually Kanti, because it's written with A, actually, an H after the T, which is very different to how Kunti is written, without H and with U. So it's Kanti because it has to do with Kanta, which is like throat. So Kanti means that which goes in the throat, if you will. And Mala means like garland. So regarding the Kanti Mala, actually one devotee asked me the same thing recently, and I for many times also thought about that. But generally the standard is not that you take off the Kanti Mala when you enter into the bathroom. It will be a little complicated. That will be a little more complicated than even putting tilak every time you go out, go in, putting out, putting outside. So I will say yes. You say, well, but the japa mala is made of tulasi, is another form of tulasi mala, and you are not entering that there. But I will say that the point of not entering to the bathroom with your japa mala is basically that you are not to chant your japa mala in the bathroom. So if you are not going to chant, why you will be taking that into the bathroom? While the Kanti mala, the very name says Kanti, is something to be worn as a permanent mal in your neck, and we can take, yes, that's we could say that's some exception to the rule that it's a special blessing that we are being protected and blessed by Tulasi Devi and Brinda Devi in the form of Kanti mala continuously accompanying us even in the bathroom, if you will. But the japa mala, which is meant to chant, is not expected to enter into the bathroom, because you are not expect to chant japa while you are, I don't know, passing stool or something like that. So that will be basically the criteria. I don't know, Brigupad Prabhu, if there is some special mention that you know of, okay, of why not and why yes, but I will go more to this, if you will, common sense criterion and practical way of dealing with that regarding these two. So I hope that helps. There is one question here on Facebook. Also, let me go to that one. 1 minute. Excuse me.
Sumati, could I just add something to that? When I got initiated by Prabhupada and we were given our Kantimala, back then they didn't come with a clasp on them. It was actually tied around your neck, so there was no possibility of taking it off. And Prabhupada said it should always be worn.
Okay, that's a good one. So more emphasis on not taking that off, because sometimes, okay, of course, it's not a mandatory thing that someone is forcing you to use it against your wish. But again, it's something that you should understand. It's part of, I mean, I project myself to wear this eternally in Nitya Navadvip. So that's part of my eternal look, if you will. Tilak, Kantimala, it's not something that we use now as sadhakas for a while. It's cool, it will help us, but eventually, whatever, I will discard them when I attain who knows what. No, when you attain your ultimate goal, their Kantimala and Tilak will be more fixed than ever. They will never disappear, basically. No? So, and Kantimala, again, is a way of reminding ourselves of our devotional prospect. Bhakti Devi is there in the form of Tulasi, of Vrinda Devi, who is making all the arrangements as a forest goddess. I won't go into the details of Tulasi Tattva, if you will, but there's a lot of that in our daily life as sadhakas in connection to Tulasi and all that Vrinda Devi represents. And these three strands, sometimes I thought about that regarding the third verse of Sikshastakam, because Mahaprabhu once said in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you wear this verse, third verse, Trinadapi Sunichayana, Tadorapi Sagishnu Namani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari, you wear that as a garland around your neck. So I thought, okay, I will try to interpret this Kantimala as personifying the third verse as well. These three strands having to do with these three lines. And those will warrant Kirtaniya Sadahari. A way of conceiving, of course, it's not a forced interpretation, but so yeah, it's important to wear it. It's not some aesthetic consideration also, no? Because sometimes we may be very concerned about, I want to have this Kantimala with this size, and I will try to make someone special. And the main thing is I want to have Tulsi blessing my life permanently. And this is a gift that my guru gave me during initiation. So that's part of my identity and so on, and so on. Okay, let me go to, there are some questions in the chat here. Let me go to one that has been sent by Gopal Nandini for a minute in Facebook streaming. He's asking something that I already answered, but I will reply to her. She's asking, it's okay to apply water tilak, if you will, on days when we are not able to wear real tilak, like when we are going to work. And she then says, I came late. If that was already answered, I will rewatch and find the answer. So yes, you can rewatch and find the answer. But yes, I mentioned that there, no problem. You can use tilak made with Ganga water, or you can have the tilak actually in the morning, and when you are going to water, you can wash away the tilak in a way. It still remains there. So again, practical considerations according to time, place, and circumstance. But the idea is somehow or other, ideally, you should have some of the tilaks, some of the different expressions of it accompanying your day. What else? Here we have a question from Sakyarati. She's asking, my Kantimala broke, so I put it on the altar. I don't want to put one that's not from Guru Maharaj. So now I'm not wearing any. Is that okay? Or should I get another one in the meantime? Well, sometimes Kantimala breaks, of course, that happens. And you should not get overtly, excessively superstitious about that. Because sometimes I've seen devotees go and mad, I don't know, my japamala is getting entangled where I'm chanting, for sure I must be committing some offense. My Kantimala broke, for sure I must doing some heinous act, and that's why this is happening. I mean, that may happen, of course, but that's not necessarily the case. So you should have your own introspection and reach conclusion. But I mean, my point is, do not go neurotic, first of all, to that. You are not asking about that, but I've seen many times this situation. So in this particular case that you mentioned, this situation, personally, I would recommend that you still use some Kantimala. Of course, you can get a Kantimala, you can offer it to Guru Maharaj, and you can pray, I mean, for his blessings to use that Kanti, and it's as if he's offering that to you. I mean, you can do all that in meditation. It's not necessarily that you write or call him, Guru Maharaj, I'm buying new Kantimala. Can I use it? I don't have any. Of course, he will say yes. So you know you have the blessing of your guru for wearing Kantimala. So you can get a new one. Before putting it, you can offer into a picture of your guru. You can meditate. He's blessing that. He's putting that in you. And of course, if you see him someday and you want to give him another Kantimala for him to give you officially live and direct, no problem. But in the meantime, I think it's good to never remind without the Kantimala, because that's a special way of being blessed, being protected, and being reminded also about who we are, who we want to be, basically. So some ideas. What else? Any other question before finishing?
Sumati, I just have another comment.
Yes, please,
That
Sumati.
Sakyarati could restring, for Kantimala is still there, just broken, just restring it. I mean, that's what most devotees that I know do.
Yeah, I don't know in her particular case how
Yeah.
much it broke or how much, I don't know.
Right, I don't know either, but if
But
it's
yeah,
possible.
that's a possibility for sure. It's not that, of course, it's not that if it's broken, you cannot string it back again or something like that. But yeah, I don't know what's the situation, of course, but if you can do it, of course, Sakyarati, you can do that. And in that case, there's no necessity of your Guru Maharaj giving it you back again. Of course, you can, in meditation, offer that to him and so on, as I described. But yeah, somehow or other, we should make that adjustment to remain in very close association with Tulsi Maharani and Brinda Devi. It's a matter of association, intimate connection and blessing, hopefully. Okay, something else before finishing?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
It's okay, mine can wait.
No, you go first.
Okay, quick question, Maharaj. About the material of Gopi Chandan. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Can I make like an emergency tilak out of, say, Madhuvan soil? I'm kind of running out of tilak material here. So I know in the Shastra it says out of ant's nest you can take some, and some out of tulasi pot. And I forgot that there was a third substance to use that are considered sacred. But what's your opinion on just taking some soil or something, clay or whatever it may be?
Well, basically, as you mentioned, you are at Madhuban now. I can hear that. I can hear the cicadas in the background, so I'm sure that you are at Madhuban. And there are Tulasi Maharanis there. So as I mentioned today, you can take some clay from Tulasi plant, and you can make some tilak with that. That's one of the main options that are recommended if you don't have Gopi Chandan or Radhakunda earth or Shamkunda earth. You can use Tulasi as well. And you are fortunate enough to have her very close, so I will recommend that to you in this particular case. So basically that. Rigopal, you had some question or commentary?
I had a question, Maharaj, about something you mentioned just briefly, the shikha. Somehow having a shikha is not very much in fashion among devotees nowadays. Not only in our Sangha, but in other Sanghas as well. Is this something, is having a shikha, is that something you would consider to be a detail, or what is your thinking about the shikha?
Concerning male devotees, I imagine, right?
Yes, because ladies usually have hair anyway.
Okay. Sumati is our exception to the rule in the community. Sumati Dasi ki jai. So what about Sika? Well, I personally, of course, have Sika, as you can see, and you know me. And I agree with what Brigo said, that nowadays it's not that popular, if you will. Of course, Sika is not something to be popular about it or not. It's not something, it's a type of fashion. It's something that is present even in the wider Vedic culture and conception, of course. It's not something limited to being a Gaudiya Vaishnava only. Then you have Sika. You can see Vaishnavas from other Sampradayas wearing Sika. And again, followers of Vedic culture from lore, from the old times, Sika was part of that. And there are many, I've read many descriptions about Sika, some more connected to even physical protection, if you will. Now, if you fall and you hit your head, this part of your head, this is a very delicate part of the skull that you may die quickly. So if you had the Sika, you will be protected in such an accident. So you have that really like basic physical reasons, and some others that are also, I've heard them like to the other extreme, sound a little bit like extreme to me. Like, for example, if you are about to leave this body and you don't have Sika, Krishna won't be able to take you to the spiritual world because he will take you by the Sika and carry there. And on top of that, the Sika should have a knot, because if you don't have a knot, Krishna will take the Sika and his hand will slip from your Sika and you will fall again. So when I hear those things, of course, I'm thinking, take the Sika off better, no, better than giving those types of, of justifications, if you will. So personally, I'm wearing Sika because, of course, it's also part of our tradition. And we are projected as in the Nitya Navadip as Brahman Kishores. We will be wearing Sikas. That's the description, at least given in the Padatis that describe our daily attire, if you will, as sadhakas in the Nitya Navadip. There will be Sika, there will be Tilak, there will be Upavita. No, as you know, as our Guru Maharaj is not given Upavita, and he makes a point for that, and it's very interesting, of course. But also he makes a point sometimes that, but you can, if you had already from before or whatever, or he gave it 25 years ago because he gave it before, you can continue using that in the context of projecting that you will be using that eternally in Nitya Navadip. So I will take the Sika in that sense like something like that, not so, if you will, crucial as wearing tilak or kantimala, but also not to the point of saying you can dismiss that altogether. It's totally a hair stuff, because it's not a fashion only. It's a way of saying, sometimes I've heard this explanation that says, well, the Sika as a symbol, if you will, represents, okay, I'm taking this hair off and only this remaining this one, which means I'm trying to detach myself from everything, if you will, detach, except for Krishna. So which means I'm attaching to everything in the context of him. So again, there's a lot of symbology there. And if you are not taking the meaning of that, and you are just doing that because everyone is doing that or someone is doing that, and just following something from imitation, it may not be that favorable. And I understand that for certain reasons in one's work or something, it may not be so proper, like sustainable to wear it. In some cases that can happen. And I understand that for some devotees, again, in their DNA of whatever, it may look again too weird to wear it, or they may not even have hair at that part of their body, of their head. I've seen devotees having the Sika like in this part, basically, because there's becoming like without hair there. So for me, again, it's not that of an absolute consideration as of such importance as the Kantimala and the Tilak, but at the same time, we are to, as Brahmin Kishores, in Nityananda, we will be having that Sika. So the point is, do not get extremely detached from that, because in eternity, that will be there waiting for you, if you will. No? So there's a place, again, for that. And it's not necessarily, again, a way that you will be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava because so many other people is wearing Sika. It has something to do with being a follower of Vedic tradition in a general way. So it's also has some part of inclusiveness in society and a certain system of the time. So some of those will be my considerations. And here Madam Mohan is sharing in the chat some other of these extreme versions. He said, when I was in South India, one Brahman Pujari told me if I didn't tie my Sika, ghosts will come. And I know that for sure there are some statements like that in scripture. I have not been doing research today regarding injunctions in Shastra about the Sika and the tying of the Sika. I don't know, Bri Gupad, if Sanatana Goswami speaks in detail on Hari Bhakti Vilas. No, he's not doing that. So also, since Sanatana Goswami spoke about brushing the teeth and so many other things, but he didn't spoke about Sika, we may take it's something that it's not that important, I will say, as some other points in our Gaudiya tradition. So some ideas on how to deal with our hairstyle, if you will. So I think we are in time today. So if you agree, we can finish here. And well, see each other next week. Next week we are continuing again with our classical schedule of Mondays and on Thursdays, at least for some weeks, since we won't be having some special celebration in the next weeks. So see you next Monday. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Haribo, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo